My Gavan and Melanine, and well met indeed. I am Adrian von Ziegler, the head of the modding team behind Divide and Conquer. Welcome back to Divide and Conquer, today with the Realm of the Lothlórien faction overview, Lothlórien. Now before I get into the overview itself, I just wanted to show you this change that was implemented to the Dropbox build today, but given to us about a week or so ago by a gentleman whose name entirely escapes me, and I'm terribly sorry. I will remember it for one of the videos for this week. And that is just that you may now see that the images has been swapped around. So when you click on factions now, as you can see me doing over and over and over, it highlights where you actually are. To be honest, the reason why I never really felt that this was necessary was because the map we had anyway showed you where everyone was, and like, are people really playing a Lord of the Rings game and not knowing where the factions are? Like, can you be interested in Lord of the Rings and not have even a basic knowledge of where factions are? I just never thought it was really that important. And as you can see, it's basically done by taking the unit image, putting it there instead with some editing of the coordinates in the M2W file. And then putting the original map symbol back down there. So I don't know what's going to come there. Obviously, it's not just going to be a green 2.0 beta, but you can now at least see where your faction is. So yay! But you've got that at the expense of now no longer seeing the unit that your faction's best unit. So I will join you again on the Lothlórien campaign map. Welcome to Lothlórien. Here we are on the Lothlórien campaign map. So let's dive straight in. Size of your domain and the army you start with as Lothlórien. Well, apologies, I've got a cold again. Lothlórien starts with two towns, Ceden Amroth and Caras Galadhon, or Eastern and Western Lothlórien. And within those towns is a very, very small army. You get one unit of archers in the west, and an archer and a warder in the east. And then, of course, you get Lord Celeborn and High March Warden Haldir. And that's it. Very small starting army, very small starting domain. So expansion is going to be hot on your topics. Hot on your list of things to do, rather. So then, your leader, capital, unique bodyguards, etc. Well, your capital is, of course, Caras Galadhon. And your leader is, of course, Lord Celeborn. Lord Celeborn, just like Thranduil, does not have a unique faction campaign model. That is just what any faction leader for Lothlórien will look like. However, that is independent of what your general looks like. So your leader has a deeper, or kind of a brighter red almost, a different coloured red cape, and he doesn't wear a helmet. Whereas your standard general does wear a helmet. And the standard Lothlórien captain looks a bit like a woman, to be honest. It may well be. The women are not unheard of fighting for the elves. So Lord Celeborn is your faction leader, Haldir is your faction heir, and you do have a family tree. And imagine that Haldir has been adopted by Celeborn, not that he is his actual son, because of course he isn't. Also, interestingly, in an attempt to make Lothlórien not too outrageous at the beginning, Haldir's two brothers have not been included. So those of you that will have read it know that Haldir actually has two brothers. Is it Rumil and Orofin? It's definitely Rumil and Aura something. I think it's Orofin. Anyway, and they've not been included because then Lothlórien would have 5 generals at the start of the game, or 4 generals at the start of the game, and that's just too many. So your capital is Caras Galadhon, and this also trains your diplomat. Your diplomat comes from the Mirror of Galadriel, which is taken to be a structure rather than just the actual mirror basin thing. So that's where your diplomat comes from. Your next nearest diplomat is from Dol Guldur, should you take that, or Khazad-dûm, possibly both East and West trained diplomats, can't remember. And remember, bribery has been removed in any future versions. This video was released to you all on the 12th of March 2017. And if you're playing a version that releases after that date, then bribery has been removed. So remember where your diplomats train, because you'll only get 2. So then, on to what do these people actually have? Well, Celeborn has Elbereth Guards. They are your standard elite spearman unit for Lothlórien, as you'll see in the second half of the video. They're basically just your train everywhere elite spearmen. And High March Warden Haldir, as his name suggests, has Galadhrim March Wardens. Now, they are a really good unit. Haldir is better than Celeborn, so do remember that. You want to use Haldir to the best of his ability because he's a beast. These guys are just outrageous, as you will see from the other side. I'm pretty sure as well that they are effective against armor with their secondary weapon, so it doesn't show up here because their primary weapon is their bow. So a 10 missile, a 17 melee, and I'm pretty sure AP on the melee. They're really powerful. And you'll see why when we get to the Elven Alliance script, or those of you will already guess it. So, expansion then, where can you go? Well, you can cross the river and take Lothlórien, or you can head south and take Adreichán. Those are your only options. Outside of that, you might beat Rohan to Rochberg, which is useful if you're planning to attack Isengard. Deja vu, I remember saying that exact thing in the last video, so I think that one must have been there since the last overview. I don't know. No, that may be something else. So south and east are your only expansion options. To the west, because obviously the AI is Khazad-dûm, they've got Khazad-dûm already. And to the north, you are bordered by the town of Forodrine, the little hobbit village of Forodrine, which is held by the Valesmen. So those are your only options. Cross the river, head south. I'll get onto the river a bit more in a moment. So neighbours and diplomacy then. Well, your neighbours, of course, are the Vale of Anduin and Khazad-dûm. You are not directly land bordered with anyone else yet, but if you take Lothlórien, or if Dol Guldur takes Lothlórien, you will be bordered with them. And you are allied only to the Dwarves of Khazad-dûm, so that they can march through your lands if you play as Khazad-dûm. That's necessary for the AI. But you're at war with the Misty Mountains and Dol Guldur. Side little tidbit of modding. I think I will change the faction name for Dol Guldur to Dol Guldur. So they won't be Shadow of Mirkwood anymore. They're just going to be Dol Guldur. Likewise, I'm probably going to change this from Realm of the Galathrim to Lothlórien. But that's a minor point. So your enemies are around you, but not directly threatening you just yet. So you don't have to worry. But it will not be long before they do threaten you. Especially Dol Guldur. Dol Guldur have a real problem with Lothlórien being in existence, and they will throw a lot at you. Mostly because you are only one region away from their most profitable, most useful, and most trainable. That's not the word I mean. Useful and profitable. We'll go with that. Basically, Dol Guldur is their best region. Dol Guldur is one of the better regions for miles around. Karas Galathon's obviously a good counterpart to it. So those two are massive settlements, and Dol Guldur will want yours with every breath. And I'll cover some more. I'll talk a little bit more about people wanting your stuff in a moment. So economy and buildings then. Well, you are the elves. And as of any future version of this mod, 2.0 and beyond, you have no building restrictions at all. You can build up to the top level of castles, which is a stronghold. Obviously it goes Motte and Bailey Castle, stronghold. And you can get the highest level of town, which is a large city. The huge city, remember, is locked off. That's unavailable to anyone in the game. We use that for custom settlements. So you get every level, which is town, city, and castle and stronghold. If you're watching this with version 1.2, which most of you will be, elves are restricted with all their castle buildings. So 2.0 and beyond, no restrictions. Version 1.2, no castles. Do remember that. Economy-wise, you can make good money. You get all the buildings that everyone gets. You get the ports and whatnot, farms. You get the added income bonus of the Gwaith Rhywntyn, which gives you an extra 100 income, but it does cost 7,500. This is because the elves tend to have a problem whereby their growth just kind of stops. Their growth just stagnates, and I never saw this issue with really anyone else except the elves, and it happened to all 4 elven factions. And the best way around it was just to make a building which gave them population growth bonuses. I'm tempted to remove it from the AI because they get them anyway. In fact, I will. I should write that down, but I haven't got a bit of paper. Bugger. So if you find that your population is stagnating, you have a dedicated building that gives you income, reduces costs, interestingly. That will probably be changed by 2.0. And increases growth. There's a second level of the Gwaith Rhywntyn as well, and that increases growth even more. So you're actually higher than average capability of making money as Lothlórien, which is good. And in terms of guilds then under the buildings as well, you get the standard guilds that the elves get. So a warrior's guild, which increases your melee weapons. A plant preservation, which is the Gwaith Rhywntyn, but it's not actually a guild. You can just build it whenever you want. And a dance guild, which is an archer's guild, essentially. Interestingly, the Master Dance Guild and the Great Dance Guild have no differences. But that doesn't matter. It's only a minor thing. You only get... Remember that with all guilds, something that a few people don't seem to know is that every settlement can have one of the first level of the guild once you meet the requirements. And then it's one per faction of the second level of the guild. And then it's one per game full stop for the Master Dance Guild. So only one Master Dance Guild can be in existence. So if the AI beat you to it, it's gone. You can't have it. Every faction gets at least one of the second tier, though, or gets one of the second tier, and that will often be in your biggest cities that will get that. The AI will beat you to almost every single level of guild in existence, so you're really going to struggle to get the highest tier guilds. But you will probably then stumble across the town that has the guild in, so you can get it that way. Right, so we move on to their scripts then. Well, let's start with the garrison script this time. As many of you will now know, because I've said it, this is the third time, you will get a garrison in Caras Galadhon, Imladris, Dol Guldur, Thranduil's Halls, and Mithlond. There may be one or two other regions, possibly Cairn Amroth might get one, I'm not really too sure, but the moral of the story is elves don't get very many garrisons at all. And of course, every rebel region that you can currently see, if you take it and upgrade it one level beyond the point that it currently is, you will also get a garrison. Although, no, I don't think the elves do. I really should have looked that up. Maybe I'll look it up for the Linden one if I can remember. You might get a garrison elsewhere, but just bear in mind the bare minimum is the 4 capitals of the elves and Dol Guldur. Outside of that, if you get a garrison, great, but don't count on it, is the moral of the story. Right, so on to their script then. Well, they've got, of course, the Elven Alliance script, and it works exactly the same as the Woodland Realm way, so I won't rehash the details too greatly. But essentially, you need to get an alliance with the Woodland Realm, ideally as early as possible, and then any time after the 40th turn, the script will trigger, and you'll get a messenger saying, hey, there's an army coming, we're just coming down, goodwill message, there's an army coming to try and get you, and then you're like, oh, brilliant, cheers, okay. And then it asks if you want to raise troops to defend against it or not, and you can do what you want there. And then once that army is killed, you'll then get a message saying, hey, I come to propose a peace alliance from the Woodland Realm, what are you saying? And if you then, this is where you then get the option. If you then reject that messenger immediately, so you don't even allow him an audience with Lord Celeborn and Lady Galadriel, then you will then get access to the March Wardens after the barracks event. So if you deny the script right at the beginning, you can get the March Wardens. If you see the script through right to the end, you'll get the unique building which you can build in Caras Galadhon, Dol Guldur and Thranduil's Halls, the Sylvan Gathering, which gives you a spattering of woodland units, namely Woodland Warriors, who are an aggressive early game unit, the Elder Council, who are an aggressive mid game unit, the Hin-E Dower, the outrageously good archers, and the Heri Lang, which are their solid aggressive swordmen. A little bit more backstory on this is that Lothlórien and the Woodland Realm are counterparts to one another. So Lothlórien are more defensive and the Woodland Realm are more aggressive. So if you do accept the alliance and you forego the use of the March Wardens, who are outrageously good, then you will just get 4 more aggressive units than you can train. So like for like stats, the Woodland Realm are the aggressive nation and Lothlórien are the defensive nation. So the choice is there, and the choice is therefore yours. So, speaking of scripts, it's not technically one, and you can't trigger it, but it will affect you a lot, and that is invasions. In every campaign where I've played as Lothlórien, which has been 3 times now, and every report I've ever seen as anyone playing as Lothlórien, the message that is readily available to you all is that the invasion will invariably be Caras Galadhon every single time if you play as Lothlórien. However, if you then take Dol Guldur, they'll switch up and they'll take Dol Guldur instead. Likewise, if you took, say, Goblin Town, then they'll try and get that. Sauron will always prioritise returning Christian belongings back to the Pope, rather than taking infidels' lands. And obviously I use the comparison there because Sauron in this game is actually just the Pope mechanic from the base game. So Sauron will always focus on getting back his holdings rather than taking yours. So if you take Dol Guldur, you'll probably get an invasion called on it every single turn. The only way to stop invasions is to destroy the ring. Obviously in version 2.0 and beyond, you can destroy Mordor by taking all of their settlements, but that doesn't kill the Pope. He is a different, unrelated faction, and he's only killed if you drop in the ring. So invasions will persist until you destroy Sauron himself. Moral of the story there. So do just be aware, Caras Galadhon is invaded a lot. However, the battle map is really easy to defend. You get about 4 Guardians, the garrison unit, and I have won some outrageous victories there. My most famous and best victory was about 2,000 elves led by Lord Celeborn. About 1,600, I think, actually. And we were up against 9,500 units from a combined army of Mordor, Harad, Khand, and Rhûn. 4 of them attacked me in one go as an invasion, and I managed to win. By the skin of my teeth, I might add, but I managed to win. So it is very good fun, but the invasions might get a bit monotonous after a while. So try and expand out to give Sauron somewhere else to take. So then we come on to map changes. Well, many of you will have seen significant change already, and that is the river to the north. And this is also where I'm going to explain the river here. In previous versions 1.2 and before, you can cross the river directly at the Anduin into Lothlórien. That is no longer possible. If we click on Cofnibben, it will show you that the only ways into Lothlórien now are that bridge just there, that bridge there, and that bridge there. That will obviously be a bridge once this region gets roads. So there's only 3 ways in, north, south, and west. You're totally defended from the Anduin now. No threats are going to be coming from that way, which is always good. However, there is a river crossing to the south down here. So if I just quickly reset him.
I shall continue tomorrow.
What was his name? Cofnibben. There you go. Oh, excuse me, sorry. I've sniffed straight into the microphone. You can cross just there, just south of the river there. The nearest crossing after that is around about where that village is. Just to that little spike there. But you can use the fort there to block and defend yourself on that side. So those are the most significant changes. There's also been a minor change to this bridge here so that it's no longer a steep, horrific battle map. It now flows nicer, but it also means that it takes a little longer to get into Khazad-dûm than it previously used to. And this bridge battle here has been totally removed. As you can see, I've just made the river come down out of the foothills rather than the mountains themselves. And of course, if you haven't already seen, we've got all the new resource models, or resource models rather. So there's some grain, there's villages, there's a fishery. All the little bits and bobs are in place, and it looks wonderful. I don't think there's anything new to show you, or have I got... Oh yeah, Durin's Tower now works properly, after me implementing that incorrectly. So all of that work is done by the Elite Dwarf, and we thank him immensely for it. The Elite Dwarf will also be creating the Elven Castles, so hopefully by the time the Linden campaign goes out, I might be able to show you an Elven Castle, but... none of the actual castles that start on the map will be Elven. There won't be a Motte and Bailey version of an Elven castle because there are no Elven castles on the game at the moment. So, but as Linden, I could take a castle and then upgrade it. So those are the key map changes. Well, in terms of regions, Dwinberg is possibly new from version 0.52. Rochberg is possibly new from version 0.52, as I mentioned earlier. I'm not sure if that was there already or not. And those are the only 2 major region changes nearest you. Oh, and I suppose Anon and Arod as well, which didn't used to be there either. This used to be all one big region of Eregion, and we split it to Eregion and Hollin, which isn't technically accurate because they are the same place. But don't worry about that. You'll also see the nice new banners there floating above Lothlórien's capital, ever so slightly off-centre, but every single one of them needs editing in a different way, and it just takes so bloody long, so much trial and error to get them to be perfectly central. But rest assured that it absolutely annoys the hell out of me every time I look at it. And we will get about fixing that little back shadow thing. But I think that's everything. Tips and difficulty. Lothlórien... if you take out the invasions, which happen frequently, as I say, I would suggest Lothlórien are... possibly one of the easiest Elven factions. I know there are only 4 Elven factions and they're all pretty easy, although in the Woodland Realm one, my own campaign looks like it's going sour again. Imladris, I would suggest, are hands down the easiest because they've got the best start to the game, and once the elves are in the late game, they're unstoppable. Linden, of course, have no enemies either, but they don't get as good troops at the beginning, but you can turtle and then get to the end and be better. So it's a toss-up between Imladris and Linden who's best, but Lothlórien I don't think is particularly difficult. You don't have to worry as much about Rune, and you can take Dol Guldur so early that you just remove them from the game before they become any kind of problem. Do not underestimate how powerful the March Wardens are. Especially if you couple them with the Elbereth Guard of Celeborn, you've got a real force on your hands. And then, of course, you've got to then go on to real victory, which for all the elves is always to defeat Mordor and then just whoever's near you. So you've got to take down Dol Guldur and you've got to take down Mordor, and you need Barad-dûr, Dol Guldur and Caras Galadhon to be held by yourselves. And that's it. So I would suggest if you're playing as the elves, try and rush Dol Guldur. Build up an army, ignore Akhnodion, ignore Idraikan, let Rohan get Rockberg, go for Dol Guldur. Take that as fast as you can. Once that starts churning out elven culture, you've got 2 fully built cities ready to go, and you can just pump out units and survive. But you will notice that Lothlórien is not very wealthy at the start of the game. Not very wealthy at all, and this is because of your lack of borders. You only border 2 regions and 2 nations, and one of those doesn't even have a road. So you're not going to earn money too much too quickly, and indeed you only earn 700 gold at the start of the game. Although I have got all these people out of their towns. If we chuck them all back into their towns, you earn about 869. So you're not going to earn a lot of money at the beginning, but try and rush Dol Guldur. Okay, that concludes this side. Let's go over to the battle map. Welcome to the battle map side. So a quick overview of Lothlórien shows that they have a much more varied roster than the Woodland Realm. You get you get 1 extra cavalry, or you get the same amount of cavalry, sorry. But you don't have as much a focus on archers. You have more of a kind of mix of both, as you can see throughout there. So not as heavily archer focused, but still very good. So straight in then, there may of course be 1 or 2 of these that are in the wrong place, but that's the fun of it. This is a general overview of the roster. So your first unit then are the Lothlórien Sentries. These are the equivalent of the Woodland Wardens from the first from Woodland Realm. The Woodland version has an axe, and the Lothlórien Sentries have a sword and a shield. And there's their stats there. As ever, I'm not going to go into detail. You can check the old overview. I will only go into detail of units that are brand new. So Lothlórien Sentries are good, aggressive units, a wonderful defense of 15 at the start of the game. Very, very powerful. As I say, Lothlórien are way more defensive than the Woodland Realm, and their stats just really reflect that. So incredibly defensive stats from their first tier troops. And as always, all elves start with good morale response. You get bonuses in forest and snow. You're not effective by grassland, so no bonuses, no negatives. And you don't fight very well in deserts. If you make it all the way to Harad, they will have an advantage over you. These guys, of course, having spears, get a bonus against horses and whatnot, and including black mounts of the Yolari, which is always good. The first archer unit the Lothlórien get are the Lothlórien archers, your basic archer unit. And they're just, as usual, very good. Elven archers, always better than everyone else. Not only do they have a high missile attack, but they get a unique elven arrow, which gives them better accuracy than everyone else. So a human, an orc, and an elf, all with average accuracy, they would actually mean that the elf has better accuracy than the other 2, and the human would be better than the orc, and the orc would be the worst. Even though that will say average for all 3, there is in fact 3 tiers of average. So there's orc average, human average, and elf average, and they're higher and lower respectively, or lower and higher respectively. So elves are always very accurate and high damage. You also get basically just a clone of the Woodland archer unit, Lothlórien Scouts, and it is just that. It is a horse archer unit. Exactly the same as the Woodland Realms horse archer unit, basically. But as always, the stats are always different. So if 2 units are clones, like for example, we get a spear and shield and they get a spear and shield, ours will be more defensive and theirs will have a higher attack stat. So Lothlórien are actually, I prefer to the Woodland Realm because A, I like the grey colour scheme, and also I like their defensive nature over the aggression of the Woodland Realm. A little lore tidbit for you if you are interested. The Malorn tree, which makes up the bulk of Lothlórien, has grey bark. And also the forest floor is reasonably grey as opposed to brown and green. And obviously because the bark isn't brown and green and there aren't as many green leaves in Lothlórien, they're mostly the golden Malorn colour, grey blends in better, which is why Lothlórien are said to wear grey. And that theme permeates with almost every single unit, save for the movie-inspired elites. So there are not very many choices before the barracks event. However, there is a possibility that both the Gurthinen, or Gurthinen, yeah, that's exactly the same thing, and the Gurveleg are both possibly available in small numbers before the barracks event. I can't quite remember. If you are interested as well, Gurthinen means silent death, and Gurveleg means great death, or mighty death. So, there's a little bit of interesting for you. But after the barracks event, this is your lineup. So we'll start with the infantry again. Your mainline units now are a pike unit, interestingly, the Yavanna's Chosen. And these can do a schiltrum rather than a spear wall. And I think they use a halberd rather than a pike animation, but they're still very effective defensive troops. Very effective defensive troops. These should form the main battle line of your later game armies because they can hold for a very long time and they hold very, very well. They are one of the units that the Woodland Realm get if they accept the alliance. Another mainstream unit are the Sentinels of Kerin Amroth. Now, they're called Sentinels of Kerin Amroth, but rest assured they are available everywhere. And they're just a better sword and shield unit. There's normally always one sword and board unit in every tier of every nation because they're just so... They're like the bread and butter of melee warfare. So there's always one of these. And their morale's better than the lower tier. Everything's better than the lower tier. Of course, pause it on the stats if you really want to have a read. Lothlórien also get a good barracks event cavalry unit, just like the Woodland Realm, and theirs is the Lothlórien Lancer. Again, not particularly new unit, not new unit at all, I don't believe. And there's their stats there. Just a good cavalry unit, good charge, good melee, can do heavy damage. So then we come to the semi-unique unit, and one that I'm not sure was in 0.52, and that's the Gurthinen. As ever, it tells you at the bottom, Gurthinen. How to pronounce it. Mantra of the Gurthinen. E just means the Berio Idailen, shadows protect you. Well, that takes me back when I wrote that. Anyway, the Gurthinen are a very interesting kind of twist on a shock infantry unit because they frighten nearby enemy infantry. They don't get armor piercing, but they frighten nearby enemies, and they can hide anywhere, and they have a really high attack for their kind of tier, their kind of level. Obviously, Yavanna's Chosen have a better attack, but they are slower. They've got their pike, they have their pike formation, they can't hide anywhere. And the Sentinels of Kerin Amroth have the same attack damage, but they also cannot hide anywhere, and they don't frighten the enemy. So the point of the Gurthinen is not shock troops in a way that they hit the enemy and do loads of damage. They are morale shock troops. That's the point of them. They spring up out of nowhere, hit the enemy, frighten them as they charge at them, and the point of them is to try and make the enemy break. So whereas standard shock troops, the point of them is just to get a really successful flanking or rear attack on the enemy. You come around the side and you hit them powerfully at their weakest point with your really aggressive unit. But the Gurthinen are all about trying to break enemy units. So they are morale shock troops rather than damage shock troops. And to never underestimate hide anywhere. It is really quite useful. And speaking of hide anywhere, and after the barracks event, the elves are quite adept at hiding anywhere, as you can see, because both of their barracks event archers hide anywhere. But we'll deal with the rangers first. Rangers are just elven rangers, so they don't just have the name for pips and giggles. They have the incredible range, and they have the exceptional accuracy that elven rangers get. So a very powerful arch unit, like really powerful arch unit. They may just blend into your grey background, but they are actually beasts. So in the later stages of the game, Yavanna's Chosen and Rangers should make up the bulk of your army, supported when you can with the Elbereth units. But Rangers really very powerful. And again, they can hide anywhere, as we said. So they are very good at surprising and attacking the enemy. And that all feeds into the defensive nature of Lothlórien. You're ambushing the enemy and you're defending against them. So you've got your defensive line holding, and then when the enemy attacks it and you've trapped them, then you spring your ambush attack. And you try and break their morale immediately with all of these units appearing out of nowhere and the Gurthinen hitting their morale with their frightening ability. And speaking of ambushing and killing the enemy well, we come on to the game's most specialised unit, the Gurveleg. Now, the Gurveleg is technically an archer and does technically have the highest missile attack damage of any archer. Possibly beaten by the Lothlórien Guard of Imbladris. But they have a 14 missile attack. It's really, really high. And they are effective against armour with their bows. They can hide anywhere. They get a bonus against cavalry. They can use flaming missiles. They have excellent stamina. Their defense is pretty poor, actually. But their melee is also 11. Their charge is 7. They're really aggressive. So I hear you saying, Galu, what on earth is a downside to these guys then? Why would I not train them? Well, the downside is they have a 70-meter range. They are troll killers. They were created purely by Hummingbird, and then I think he ran it by me or something like that. But they're basically hummingbirds. Either Hummingbird or myself. No, I'm pretty sure it's Hummingbird. They're created by him, and they're almost their entire reason of being is to kill trolls. Consider them incredibly powerful javelin troops with a lot more ammunition. Although, as you can actually see, they only have 6 missiles, so they don't have more ammunition. But they do have a better accuracy than javelins. And of course, they fire bows rather than javelins, and there is a little bit of a bonus in that because the javelin animation is a bit buggy. Some of them don't fire, some of them don't throw. They can't do the arcing shot, so there's all sorts of ramifications. Now, these are only available in a forest region, and that is basically just looking at the map, seeing if it's predominantly trees, and then hoping that it's forest. If you can't train them from a region that you think should be forest, that's not a bug. It just means that in the game files, it's not set as a forest region. They have very good morale response. Once they have finished with their outrageously powerful 6-arrow volley of death, then they are just very similar to the Gurthinen. So strong there as well. They're just really good, and they are really good at bringing down trolls. They have everything that you need to kill a troll: armor piercing, high attack stat, the ability to get near to the troll, and exceptional accuracy and range. Everything that kills trolls in one handy little package. So they're very good against that. They're also good at taking out enemy generals if you can get in close. They're good at just dropping anything that they can get near to. Because accuracy is always improved the closer you are, and if you factor in their exceptional accuracy anyway, then the 70 meters can actually act as a massive bonus, because it means you're only firing basically point blank. They're just really powerful. So use them when you can. Right, so we come on to your last tier then. Well, there's only one new unit here. I'm not even sure it is new from 0.52. But you've got the Elbereth units. They are here. They now have the Helm's Deep look. That's just the Third Age look. That's basically untouched. I think we gave them blue cloaks instead of red. I can't remember. But there's their stats. They're just very elite. They have locked morale. They're good at everything. They haven't changed from the last overview, or indeed from Third Age really at all. So there's the Elbereth swordsmen. They have a high attack, solid defense. They're just aggressive swordsmen. There's their morale locked again. The Elbereth archers, 10 missile attack, the same as the rangers, but they obviously have a much better melee and a much higher defense. 10 more defense and 3 more melee. They are far more sustainable, dependable, survivable than the rangers. And then finally, of course, the unit I have sung a song of so much through this video are the Lothlórien March Wardens. Little minor touch on Sindarin for you. The DH, whenever written in Sindarin, is never separated into D and then the start of the next word with a H sound at the front. So it's never Galadrim or Galadrim or anything like that. It's pronounced like a voiceless TH is what it's called. And it's kind of the same sound as the word they. So Galadrim. So it's not hard, although I never really get it right. Basically, it's just TH. So if you ever want to pronounce that rightly, it's Galathrim, not Galadrim. But anyway, Lothlórien March Wardens are powerful. 15 melee attack, very aggressive. And as I say, I'm pretty sure they're effective against armor, even though they have the sort of fantasy-style glaive. They're one of the only real units in the game that has one of these totally unrealistic and unbelievable weapons. But it looks really cool, and they're like, it just kind of fits their like ninjato style. Their missile attack is 10 again, the highest stat for the archers of Lothlórien. Their defense is 30 when compared with the standard kind of sword-wielding units of the Elbereth, your mainstream. They're better than that, but they're not as defensive as your actual defenders, the Elbereth guards. Remember, the Elbereth guards are the bodyguard of Celeborn, and the March Wardens are the bodyguard of Haldir. So they're very, very powerful. They are susceptible to armor piercing because they've got a high armor stat. So that can be half of that is immediately taken away by an armor piercing opponent. So do keep out for that. Also, they are incredibly susceptible to armor piercing archers. So if you ever turn on the Dunedain and they have steel bowmen, then they will annihilate the March Wardens. Arrows are not taken into consideration. Defense skill is not used when arrows are shot against you. And armor-piercing arrows take that defense of 30 down to 7. So watch out for armor-piercing archers. They will stretch you. But it's very rare that you'll fight against them because you'd have to turn against the forces of good. They, again, have locked morale, and their stats are all very, very good. Accuracy high, range 210. They require Lothlórien region, though. So they're only available in Cairn Amroth and Caras Galadhon. So there is that restriction. But they are really powerful to make up for it. And I am pretty damn sure that even though they don't have an axe, they are armor-piercing with their melee attack. So really strong. Really, really strong. And then finally, your bodyguard. There they are in their silver armor, so that they stand out from the Elbereth Sentinels. They're just your bodyguard. They're just a better version of the Elbereth archers. Higher defense, higher missile, and higher... and one less on the melee, actually, sorry. There's always a playoff somewhere. Again, they are locked. So Lothlórien, if you are playing in a battle and you want to run away, you can't. No, you can always withdraw your troops, but they will never run away. So if you're playing in a battle where you cannot withdraw, so you've used up all your movement points, they will fight to the death. So do remember that. Your general can't run away of his own free will. And if you can't withdraw him because you're out of movement points, you've sealed his fate, unless you win that battle. It's very rare as Lothlórien that you won't win a battle, though, because they're really bloody powerful. So there's that. Right, so there we are. We've handed over to the AI. I can get rid of that. And by pressing buttons furiously, we can get rid of everything. So there we go. Go, my brothers. The AI, as ever. Right, this time, as I said last time, I've depicted the army that is going to be in the next faction. Oh, that's an outrageous kill. Next faction overview. That just happens to also be the nearest enemy to you. So Dol Guldur are currently lined up as our enemy, and they will be in next week's faction overview. So here's a quick snapshot of their units, and you can look forward to seeing them all again. As you can see, they have a heavily inspired Easterling theme, or a heavily Easterling inspired theme, to use the sentence structure properly. Other than that, though, they are just an orc trash nation. So they're very similar to Angmar, actually. Very similar to Angmar. So trash in the early game and then really powerful elites. Whereas the Misty Mountains are raw trash basically right through to the end. And Mordor are trash with one or two powerful players. Like the Great Beasts, the Sauron's Will, all those kind of things. But Dol Guldur and Angmar have some readily available, really powerful late game units. Now, I apologise for any involuntary noises that have come throughout this overview. I have a cold about a week after getting the last cold, and I never get ill, ever. So, something must have been affecting me, stressing me out.
Our foolish general.
Oh, and there goes our general.
Perhaps our chances of victory with it.
Oh, just before I do go, I was talking about making it so that this image will be different for the enemy general dying and your general dying. And I've looked into it so far, and it's going... I believe it to be possible at the moment, but it's going to take some coordinate editing and all sorts of bits and bobs that I'm going to have to look into. So I am going to try and do it because I think it would be good. So that you can look down there and immediately know if it's your general or the enemy general that's died without him telling you, or... Because sometimes he doesn't say. So it's just a good cover for that. They will probably kill us again as ever because they've got loads of armor upgrades and experience upgrades and all sorts. There's Ivana's chosen. Yes, they do use the halberd animation. Oh, that was gruesome. The telltale halberd animation, as you may have just seen, is they sometimes swing the weapon over their head. A pike unit never does that. That is a halberd only animation. But there we are. I think that will conclude the overview. So thank you very much for watching, if indeed you have. If you've got any Lórien questions, pop them in the comments below and I get around to answering them. Additionally, I will plug again, do check out Little Blue Ferret's channel and her latest video that involves me. Remember, it's the 12th of March 2017. And it's a Magicka playthrough that we're playing together. So do go and check that out. I urge you to. She, if you are wondering and you don't know by this point, is my girlfriend in real life. And she features in her videos, so you can at least see what kind of level I'm at, you know. You can go and judge my taste in women. Feel free. But until we speak again, dear friends, Navar and Aden Pedimad Melonin, and farewell.